Hi, welcome back to the cottage. Today we are going to talk about winter sowing. This is just another video in the series. The last video I did was showing you how to winter sow. Today we're going to do question and answers, and the next video we're going to do different types of jugs, totes, different types of tape, also different types of markers, and then we're gonna test them in the spring. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do them, and then in the spring, we're gonna come back and I'm gonna take you guys outside and we're gonna see what held up the best and what worked better. So stay tuned for that, and you might wanna subscribe and hit the bell so you know when we're doing that, because this is gonna be kind of fun, just like testing to see what works better. But today, let's get on with our question and answers. Now remember, every region is different and every plant needs something different. I see people stressing over winter sowing, and it's not meant to be stressful. It's supposed to be relaxing, fun, and experimenting to see what you can grow outside and let Mother Nature take care of it. All you primarily have to do after you do it is to check them once a week to make sure they're getting enough water, especially the smaller containers. They tend to dry out quicker. It just depends on what region you're in. Me, I typically don't have to worry, but I do check them once a week just in case they get overloaded with water. And usually I don't have a dry out, but I do get overloaded sometimes, which means I have to like poke a few more holes possibly. You want your soil like, not cake batter, but like brownie mix, that you want it to stay at that consistency. I see so much confusion out there, and that right, so I was confused in the beginning too. However, everybody is in a different zone, planting different plants, using different jugs and markers and everything. So you kind of just gotta ball it all up, take your basic information, and then experiment yourself with your area. Every area is just a little bit different. So what may work for me may not work for somebody one state away. So you just kind of gotta use your own judgment and experiment with it, have fun with it. And what I always say to everyone is to start out cheap. Don't throw a ton of money at it and then, maybe you're let down. So I would start out with, a couple jugs that you saved, some soil, maybe go to the Dollar Tree, get some seeds, and start with that. If you're a little apprehensive, I see a lot of people saying, well, I don't want to spend a lot of money and I don't want to waste seeds, and I get that. So that's what I did. And when I seen that, I was overthinking it, then now that's why I do it. I do a lot of seeds this way. Make sure you read your labels. They are your friend. They will tell you everything you need to know. To get this right off the bat, I start my perennials in the end of January, sometimes the beginning of February, it just depends. And I start my cold-loving annuals also at this time. However, my heat-loving annuals, I don't start till the end of March, beginning of April, because one little cold snap could ruin it. And the little seedlings, once they pop up, will die with the frost. So that is what I do, and that's been a huge question. I'm in zone 6B. Please check out the description for my lists of perennials, annuals, and herbs that you can winter sow. And I'll also put it at the end of this video, so maybe you can screenshot it or whatever if you can't get to the description. Okay, let's get started. So the first major question I get is, what is winter sowing? It is a low-cost gardening method that uses Mother Nature to germinate your seeds without having to lift a finger. The only time you're doing anything is when you're planting all your stuff, which is super, super simple and easy, throwing it outside, and then just checking on it once a week. you will get extremely hardy seedlings from doing this. They are the most hardy plants I get in my garden is from winter sowing, because they're already acclimated to being outside and they've gone the weather change, the humidity, and everything. Remember, it mimics how seeds would grow naturally. All right, let's get to the first question. Colleen asked, why winter sow? This is actually a great question. I had the same question when I started. Like I said previously, by winter sowing, you're using Mother Nature to do all the work. Germination rates are quite higher with winter sowing. Some people don't have the space inside to go ahead and plant seeds, and then you have to harden off your plants, acclimate them to the outside. It can become very intimidating. You won't have gnats, damping off disease, or seedlings drying out. So there's none of that. But we do have some questions in here about animals that I'm speculating that some people had some issues winter sowing last winter. So we'll get to those in a minute. Remember, these seeds are going to germinate into very hardy plants. Do not get stressed out if some of your seeds don't make it. They wouldn't have made it anyways, because that is just Mother Nature. Okay, Speedywell asked, what seeds can I use? You can use annuals, perennials, vegetable, herbs, ornamental grasses, shrubs, trees. I've done this with a lot of stuff. But remember, read your packets. It will tell you if they need pre-chilling, which is part of winter sowing, cold stratification. If they're native plants, you can do that with those. It'll tell you if it can withstand a light frost. You can do it with those. Self-sowing seeds, you can do them with those. Seabreeze asked, when it is getting ready to transplant, do I have to do anything special like starting indoors? So I've always popped my lids open just a little wee bit, just to let some airflow in there, to get them used to the wind, because a lot of them, they're weak, at first. So you try to strengthen them up a little bit, get that wind coming in there, and then I eventually open the tops all the way. Now, another thing is if I planted a lot of seeds, and obviously it's a lot of planting if you're doing a ton of them, I have a spot where I will, if they're getting a little too big for the containers and I haven't gotten to them yet, I will plant them out in a small area just as like a holding place until I can get to them to plant them where I want them to be. Clara asked, when is the latest you can winter sow? Good question. Winter sowing can be done anytime after the winter solstice, which is December 21st. However, in Pennsylvania, I start here at the end of January, because sometimes we'll get them warm snaps, and I've had it where we've had like a couple days in a row of really high temperatures, and then they started to sprout and then they died because we'd get a deep freeze again. So I always practice end of January, and that gives it enough time for the cold stratification to get them prepared to sprout. Remember, seeds have been sprouting for millions of years. They'll know when to pop up. Abel asked, when can I plant warm season annuals? Last year I planted everything in January and some of my annuals never germinated and some died after germination. So I wait till the end of March, beginning of April to put out my annuals. I technically don't like to plant warm, loving annuals by winter sowing. I mean, it depends on the region you're in. We get some pretty bad cold snaps. And sometimes, I mean, we've had it snow on Easter here. So that's kind of touch and go where you're at. I don't know where you're located at. Let me see if you wrote it down. I mean, the jugs are warmer by at least 20 degrees. So it just depends. Most people have luck as long as they wait till at least April. So that could be why you had an issue. And it could be an issue, are you in a region like I am? I stay away from a lot of plants like that. I'll plant them inside, and or I also have a little greenhouse, and just a little cheap greenhouse that I'll plant up all my seed trays with, like my cosmos and stuff like that, and then I'll plant them in there. Cosmos, don't have that great of luck with winter sowing. I mean, I do get some, but I feel like my germination rate is not as great, and I think it's because our weather is so cold here. Some years it's good, some years it isn't. So I've started just planting them in pots, and then I put them in my greenhouse, and it keeps them a little bit warmer and cozier. I just have to make sure that they have their water, and you can put dishes under them to do that. But I don't consider that winter sowing. That's just outright planting. But yeah, it all depends on the zone you're in and your weather. I mean, the weather's wacky here in Pennsylvania. We can go from a 60 degrees day down to a 29 degrees day the next day. And it's like, ugh, you know, like today it's 39 out. Now tomorrow we're going down to 17. So it's always different with our temperatures. It just depends on your zone. Okay, Melanie asked, how do I know which heat-loving plants I can winter sow? You can start them at the end of March, beginning of April. They will sprout when the temperatures get right for them. Keep in mind that heat-loving annuals do not need cold stratified. Okay. Diane asks, can you reuse containers, and what containers can I use? Absolutely. Recycle, recycle, recycle. That's the whole point of this. So I will use them and reuse them and reuse them until they start to crack. You'll know. They'll start to get like where you can't really handle them really well. And that's when I throw them in the recycling bin. And I have a list for you here. So you can use milk jugs, water jugs, juice containers, totes, pop bottles, pretzel containers, foil roasting pans, salad containers. Make sure you rinse these containers out really well before you use them, and make sure you put your drainage holes in. And if you don't know about any of that, I will link the video I did on how to winter sow in the description here, and you can check that out. Little Bob asked, what tape can I use to hold the jugs together, and is there another way to hold them together besides tape? Remember, you're creating a greenhouse effect. So with that in mind, you can use Gorilla Clear tape, packing tape, duct tape, painter's tape, Scotch tape. I like to make sure they will not come apart, so I tend to stick with a Gorilla Clear tape, because then they won't come apart. So yes, you can use twist ties, pipe cleaners, zip ties, and create like, just what I would do is I would cut them like you normally do, and then I would put a hole here, a hole here, a hole here, hole here, hole here, hole here, and then I would do that. Now, I don't know, we'll try it this year. I'll put that in with the video of testing things out and see how well it works. So I'm not I feel like that might be a little wonky to carry. I don't know. So you could try it. I mean, I've seen people do it, but this is the first year I've seen people doing it, so I don't know if it actually works. Some people say you're not supposed to use tape that's not clear. I've used duct tape. I've never had an issue, just as long as you don't cover your whole jug. with it, because remember, it needs that light. Lauren asked, how to keep pets out of your winter sowing. So I've never had an issue with my dog getting in, but then again, she just sniffs stuff and she don't care. But if you're having an issue like that, then I would like maybe put them up higher, or you could use fencing. You could put crates over them, just as long as the water can get through, or put them in crates, you know, milk crates. Utility shelving, maybe put them up on the top of it. It has to be able to get rainwater, so keep that in mind. Maybe if your backyard's fenced in, place them in your front yard somewhere, just as long as they're getting the light and the water that they need. Dylan asked, what is the best way to mark the jugs? Good question. Painter's paint pens, garden markers. Sharpie Extreme works for me. Now I've heard some people say it don't work for them, but like I said, it's all in your region, your weather. To be safe, I always put tags inside of my jugs in case it would fade. Now I've seen people say paint pens, and I'm really interested in that too. So I got one, and we're gonna try that this year in our experimentation of what works and what doesn't, what holds up and what doesn't. So look out for that video. Madeline asked, do I dig out my containers buried in the snow? No, they are insulated. Let them be. They're absolutely fine with the way they are. That is the beauty of this method. Clara asked, can I use compost? It is not ideal alone. I mix compost with potting soil if I don't have seed starter or pro mix, and I'll put perlite in it. You want your soil nice and fluffy for those seeds. It isn't great for seeds forming their roots and getting into the soil. So you want to make a mix, maybe a 70-30 mix. But I use seed starting, and sometimes when I'm low on cash, I'll get the pro mix. That works really well. Just make sure it does not have fertilizer in it, because seeds do not need fertilizer. So that question leads me to this: what soil to use? And lots of people ask me this. Don't get too hung up on soil, because the seeds are gonna fall anywhere they are in your yard, and they're gonna come up. I've had tomato plants grow in mulch. I've had sunflowers grow in a crack in my sidewalk. I've had poppies come up in the most strangest places, in a pile of leaves. So as long as it's not over fertilized, you'll be fine. You can use, my first year of doing this, I used dollar store soil, and it was perfectly fine. I just had to mix some perlite in it because it was a little dense. But other than that, you're fine. Just don't overthink it. But you can use Pro Mix seed starting soil, Miracle Grow potting mix. Happy Frog is one that everybody likes using. It's so expensive though. I can't afford to do that, not with the amount of plants I grow. And even if I could, I just don't feel that it's worth doing that, spending that type of money on soil. Your plants are gonna grow. Okay, Karen asked, how much soil do I add to a milk jug? Good question. About 8 cups. I use different containers, so I like 3 to 6 inches of dirt depending on what I am growing. Katie asked, can you place jugs directly on the ground? That is a tricky question. Now, it just depends. They need to be able to drain off the excess water. You don't want them waterlogged. So you can, but make sure that they can drain. And if you have slugs, make sure you use coffee filters to keep the slugs from getting in your containers. Okay, Billy asked, should I save the lids? No, just toss them. You do not need them, throw them in the recycling bin. Remember, you need the rain in there and you need the heat to be able to escape the jug. Madeline asked, I will be on vacation for a week. Will my seedlings survive? Well, that just depends on how much moisture and humidity in your area. If you have a drier area and you don't get as much rain and snow, then I would put a pan under them and fill the pan with water so that they can bottom drink. I mean, that's really tricky. Like, me, I wouldn't worry about it if it was a week. But then again, I'm in Pennsylvania. I don't know where you're at. But if it's not too dry, then you should be okay. But make sure they're getting everything they need. Thelma asked, I live in Chicago and the temps have been up and down. This week, it may hit 40 degrees. Is it still okay to start and place my seeds outside? Absolutely. It is to my understanding, as long as your temperatures stay low at night, you should be good. I've had temperatures reach about 50 degrees and my seedlings were totally fine. Okay, Julie asks, can I use totes? And is there a size of tote that works the best for winter sowing? Totes work really well for larger quantity. You can use big totes, little totes from the Dollar Tree, whatever. They work really good as long as you have your drainage and as long as they can get water. Because most, as long as they're translucent and they can get light in there. But remember, if you're going to use the large totes, they're going to get heavy with all that soil. So it's going to be hard to move them around. So you want to put them where you want them. The other thing is if they're sitting on the ground and it may, with all that weight, smash them to the ground and then they can't expel the water. So what I suggest is using blocks or bricks or 2x4s and put them up a little bit. So Petey Putt asked, do I dump the whole container of seeds in? No, space them out. In my last video, I showed you how to space them out. If they get a little overcrowded and when they start coming up, just pluck out the weak seedlings. Mother Nature does this anyways. So you're not harming anything, and no, you're not wasting seeds, but just make sure you space them out. It saves them a lot of stress. Some people say to do that. I don't agree with it because you're wasting seeds and you're putting a lot more energy into all the seeds when you could be focusing on great plants. Okay. Now, like poppies, stuff like that, the seeds are very, very tiny. I put them in, like, I take a cup of sand and then I mix them in it, and then that's how I spread mine, and it helps to spread them out really nicely. Okay, David asked, how many hours of sun do the seeds need when winter sowing? Well, they say they should be kept in part sun over the winter and then moved to a sunny location when they start to sprout. However, I just put mine right out in the garden. I just put my jugs right out there and they grow. So maybe if you're in a warmer, sunnier climate, then I would use, the method of part sun and then full sun. But in more colder regions where we don't have sun all winter, I just throw them out there. And then when it warms up and the sun comes out, then they're like, oh, it's time. So it's like Mother Nature wakes them up here. So if you're in a warmer climate with more sun, I would go with the part sun and then be able to move them. I just don't like moving my jugs once I have them planted. Okay, Penny asked, I've been thinking about trying winter sowing for flowers. What would be an easier one to start with? So try your native flowers, but I do have a couple that, I don't know your zone. I didn't think to ask you guys to put your zones down, but here's some easy ones. I made a list. So snapdragons, they're hardy and colorful, and they thrive in cooler temperatures. Foxgloves, they can be sown in winter for early blooms. Let's see what else. Pansies, they are such a cheerful little flower. I love them. and they can withstand frost and they bloom early. Marigolds are hardy and easy to grow. Sweet William, larkspur, hollyhocks, dianthus, shastas, coneflowers, black-eyed Susan, yarrow. At the end of the video, I will add a list and it will also be in the description. So this is asked by many people. What is meant by a seed being stratified? It is a seed that needs to go through a cold period to be able to germinate. Remember, no question is stupid. We all have to learn the beginning process of anything that we are doing. So drop me any questions in the comment section. Make sure you watch my video, How to Winter Sow, for more tips and tricks. The description, because I have lists of flowers and herbs and vegetables that you can winter sow. Check your zones. If you can go into your store and buy those flowers, that's great. However, you need to check, are they a warm, loving plant? You know, do they need cold stratified? Like poppy seeds, you got to throw them in the fridge or in the freezer for a while if you're not doing it this way. I just throw them all over the hillside or throw them all through the garden beds. I just and they come up. Where they come up, they come up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and then the notification bell so you know when I upload a video. We're going to be doing our testing, and we also have to do indoor planning, and we got a lot going on. So it was nice to see you all, and drop me a question or a comment, or did I forget something? Let me know in the comment section, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.